Gustav Mahler said, tradition is not worshipping the ashes, but the preservation of fire. In that order, I'm going to talk about whether Ram Janmabhoomi is a culmination or it's a new beginning. The Ram Janmabhoomi movement, both the case and the battle, the legal case and the battle, reclaiming the birthplace of Lord Ram has been one of the most significant legal battles in the history of India. Why is it significant? I'll discuss this later part of this video. But Ram being the civilizational symbol of India and the Hindus, the Indian subcontinent, which stretches from Caribbean to Vietnam, has been the most revered historical figure in the Hindu society. To take away the right of millions of Hindus who are inhabitants of this land, to not let them worship the birthplace of their civilizational symbol, has been a grave injustice done to the Hindus across India and the world. Ram Janmabhoomi movement was not any simple legal battle or a small movement on ground. People have fought for it for more than 500 years on ground, and the case stretched for more than 70 years in independent India. Now, what was so significant and special about this temple that people fought for more than 500 years? Well, when we talk about birthplace, it is something which is irreplaceable. We may change our name, we may change our work, we may even change our country, our nation, our citizenship, but we cannot change our birthplace. So how did the world and the political society think that Hindus would give up the claim on the birthplace of their civilizational symbol, that is Lord Ram? Now, in that context, I am going to talk why this battle was important and whether it is a culmination. The judgment in the Ram Janmabhoomi case that we saw last year is a culmination, or it is a new beginning of national and cultural renaissance. Lord Ram birthplace was of cultural and religious significance to Hindus across the world. The Mughals came and destroyed his birthplace and built another structure. The Hindu society fought fiercely against it and always tried to reclaim it. Reclaiming what was yours has always been justified in the history of mankind. You cannot take away somebody's property, somebody's land, and build something, and then the other person, when goes and reclaims it, you cannot call him intolerant. The fact that Hindus were called intolerant for going and reclaiming the birthplace of their god and civilizational symbol has been very it's something which is an injustice that has been done to the Hindus. They were made to feel guilty for reclaiming what was theirs. And that has been the definition of secularism in this country. Now, secularism has been in India a one-sided road. There has never been a case where a Hindu may be reclaiming what was his or hers and be called and be told that, okay, this is yours, you can take it. We have always been branded as intolerant for asking for our rights, for asking for what was rightfully or what is rightfully ours. Why is Ram Janmabhoomi temple significant? If you go to Ayodhya, you will find that there are more than 1,000 temples. There are temples on each and every aspect of Lord Ram's life in Ayodhya. So in a city where there are more than 1,000 temples, almost 90%, 99% of them dedicated to Lord Ram, if there is one temple built or not built, how is it going to change? Well, as I said, that birthplace is something you can never change. The Hindus always believed, and the scriptures clearly told, that Lord Ram was born at this particular site. And that is why the Hindus had utmost faith in that particular piece of land, which is where Lord Ram was born. It is with this conviction and it is with this faith the Hindus fought for 500 years. You cannot take away something that has a religious and cultural significance of a population of more than 80% or 85%, and something that holds significance for more than 5,000 years. And then when the person goes back and reclaims it, you cannot say that, oh, he is being intolerant. It is unjustified. It is a very perverse version of secularism. And it is something that the Hindus did not tolerate. The legal battle culminated with the victory of Hindus, where the Supreme Court of India allowed the Hindus to build Lord Ram's temple on his birthplace and continue the worship over that piece of land. Let me go back to why reclaiming such places of religious and cultural significance important. There is something called historical wrong. We, the Hindus, have been subjected to it a lot. Our temples have been razed, our people have been killed, our scriptures burnt, manipulated, and we have been made to feel sorry for everything that other people have done to us, and we have been made to feel responsible for what is happening today. It is in this context I say that reclaiming what is yours and what has been a result of historical wrong is perfectly justified. It is right. I'm not advocating taking law into your own hands, but I'm saying that reclaiming what is rightfully yours and reclaiming something for which you have been historically wronged is justified. You go to the courts, you you create a political environment, you have a political movement to reclaim what is yours. Now, Ram Janmabhoomi case is over. The Supreme Court judgment is there. The temple is being built. But is it a culmination or is it a new beginning of what I call the cultural renaissance in India? Well, let me go back to something which is very common nowadays, that is renaming places and renaming various institutions. When India got independence, we had many places and institutions that were named after a lot of British rulers and British bureaucrats and British army personnel. When we got independence, our leadership of that time decided to do away with all such names. So you would see a lot many roads that were named after maybe Chelmsford or Irwin or King George have been changed to the leaders of Indian independence. A lot many institutions which were named like Wellington, Harding, George have been changed, and their names are now named after our political heroes and heroes of the national independence, in India's independence. When the names of the cities can change because they were historically known by such names, for example, Prayagraj, for a brief period of time it was known as Allahabad. It was only after the Mughals came to India, they named it Allahabad, and since then it used to be called as Allahabad. But for thousands of years, it has been it was called Prayagraj. So when the name of Allahabad can be changed to Prayagraj, and rightfully so, why can't we reclaim other places of worship, other institutions, and change names? Changing names of cities and renaming them with what they were originally called is also a part of this new beginning. So certainly it is not a culmination. It is a new beginning. The new beginning will not only rest with the building of Ram Temple. It will continue, and it will continue to reclaim what has been there and what was our glorious history. It will continue to change that. Because it is not something it is not something that we are doing which is new. We are just reclaiming what it originally was. So names of cities have to change, and they are changing. Names of institutions have to change. They are changing. Roads, places, all these things are changing. And they should change because they hold a particular significance. What is the significance of Queen Victoria in independent India? We may very well have significance of people like Bhagat Singh or Chandrasekhar Azad or Mahatma Gandhi. So why should the institutions and roads and places not be named after them, rather be named after Babur or Aurangzeb or Humayun or Queen Victoria or King George? So the changing of names of cities, roads, and places of importance is an important step towards that beginning. Coming back to temples, there are thousands of temples which were demolished and razed to the ground by the Mughal invaders. Should the Hindus not reclaim them? And if not, do you think the Hindu society and their future generations should live with that mark of slavery that was stamped upon our heads during the Mughal rule and the British rule continue? You cannot have the name of your invader and the person who looted you and killed your ancestors. You cannot have institutions and places of worship and places of importance on their names. They have to change. Apart from that, if we go to temples which are razed to ground and there are other structures built over that, it is a matter of shame for the Hindu society. Of course, the answer does not lie with violence. Violence is not a solution. What is the solution then? It is a political movement, it is legal intervention, and it is public awakening. Public awakening being the most significant step towards undoing the historical wrongs. If you don't tell your children that your places of worship have been razed to the ground, if you don't tell your children about the glorious past that your ancestors had, and about the dark phases that your ancestors lived in, they will never understand where they come from. It is very important for us and for our future generations to understand where we come from. It is very important for our future generations to understand the struggles that our ancestors have faced during the Mughal rule, or during the British rule, or during the rule of the invaders that India saw in the last 1,000 years. Unless we tell them these stories, unless we let them know what their ancestors have gone through, you cannot bring a cultural national consensus to reclaim what was rightfully yours. Now, for a moment, I say that Ram Janmabhoomi is a culmination. Will I be doing justice to those thousands of temples that have been razed to ground, or those thousands of places of worship that were destroyed and other structures have come up over there? What would our future generation learn from the struggles that our ancestors had when there is no fruit that they see yielding from their struggles? So it is in this context I say that it is a new beginning. A beginning to reclaim the glory of this land, a beginning to reclaim the glory of our civilizational symbols, a beginning to let our future generations know what we lost and what we have to build. We lost a lot of things in the last 1,000 years. Our identity was crushed. Our institutions were razed to ground. It is our duty to let the future generations know that where they come from, what their identity is, who their civilizational symbol is, and where they stand in this world. I recently came back from Patna. Patna, which is also known as Patliputra, has been epicenter of knowledge and learning. One of the most significant universities of ancient world that existed is very close to Patna. It's called Nalanda University. Nalanda University was burnt down by an invader and ruler called Bakhtiyar Khilji. But if you want to go and see the ruins of Nalanda University, you have to get down at a station and take a taxi from there. That station is called Bakhtiyarpur. It is shocking that the town and the railway station which is closest to the Nalanda University is named after the invader who burned the entire university down. It's shameful. When we talk about the new beginning, is this what we are going to tell our future generations? That you have a railway station and a town next to Nalanda University named after the person who destroyed the Nalanda University? So reclaiming, renaming has to take place. This will be the new beginning. And this is what we are going to tell our future generations. That no, we did not carry those burdens of past and those stamps of slavery on our head to be passed on to the future generations. This is going to be the new beginning. Renaming of cities, renaming of institutions, reclaiming our institutions and places of worship. I'm in no way advocating violence, but there are ways to do it. As I discussed earlier, there can be political movements, there can be court cases, and there can be public awakening. As far as my association with the case is concerned, it goes back to 2013 when I joined Mr. Vikramjit Banerjee's chamber as an intern. and I was made to read the files of the case during my college days. And in the meanwhile, I went abroad for my studies. And when I came back from London in 2017, that at that particular point in time, this case was getting momentum. So I got actively involved in the matter in 2017 and 18. And I got the chance to brief senior counsels and help do research and pull out documents. Subsequently, in 2019, when the matter was heard by the Supreme Court in 40-day marathon hearing, I got a chance to brief most of the senior counsels involved in the matter for Ram Janmabhoomi, from the Ram Janmabhoomi side and Ramlala Virajman side. And it was a very enriching and a very fulfilling experience. For me, it was more than any commercial case that I do. It gave me more satisfaction, and it was in fact a very overwhelming experience, because I knew that this case, more than anything, also pertained to the faith of large section of Hindus spread across the globe. Millions of Hindus were had their eyes on this case and the hearing that was going on. So for me, it was very overwhelming, and I must place on record my sincere thanks and gratitude to every person who was involved and with whom I interacted and assisted them in the matter, including Mr. K. Parasharan, Mr. C. S. Vaidyanathan, Mr. P. S. Narsimha, Mr. Ranjit Kumar. And for them too, it was more, I mean, it was not a case for any monetary or benefit of power. It was solely for the faith of millions of Hindus spread across the globe. I really, I would say, enjoyed every moment of the time I spent inside the court and also outside when I was briefing senior counsels in the matter. It was a very fulfilling and enriching experience. Apart from the legalities, I think more than anything, it was the commitment of every person who worked as a team in the we were around 55 lawyers who were actively involved in the matter, and were given different responsibilities to help and brief senior counsels. It was the dedication of every single person who had abandoned their commercial practice to dedicate their entire time and energy and resources in fighting this case. So yes, it was a very fulfilling experience, and I'm really grateful to God for having given me this opportunity to be a part of this historic judgment, and help in whatever little way I could in the culmination of this case. Talking about the legalities, I think the judgment is very sound, and it, as I discussed earlier, it does pave way for a new beginning, to reclaim what is ours, to reclaim the glory that we have lost. So it is there, but a lot of people have flagged an issue, including the Supreme Court, which would be problematic in future. This is what a lot of people believe. It is the reference to the Places of Worship Act in the judgment. So what I'll do is I'll read out what exactly the Supreme Court has said and how I see it, and how can we get rid of the embargo that is supposedly put by the Supreme Court. So I'll read out from the SCC volume. In paragraph 102 of the SCC volume, it says that the Places of Worship Act imposes on a non-derogable obligation towards enforcing our commitment to secularism under the Indian Constitution. The law is hence a legislative instrument designed to protect the secular features of Indian polity, which is one of the basic features of Constitution. Non-retrogression is a fundamental feature of fundamental constitutional principle, of which secularism is a core component. The Places of Worship Act is thus a legislative intervention which preserves non-retrogression as an essential feature of our secular values. And then this Supreme Court goes on to discuss the Bommai judgment. Now there are two ways to look at this issue. One is where we read the Places of Worship Act as an instrument designed to protect secularism, which is basic structure of the Constitution. Now we all know that the basic structure of the Constitution cannot be changed or altered. In that context, if you read, then this is an instrument, this is a legislative instrument which is designed to protect the secularism, and secularism being a basic structure of the country, you cannot do anything with this particular act. Now this particular act, Places of Worship Act, places imposes an embargo that after 1947, whatever the status of the structures or places of worship were, they would remain untouched and the status quo would be maintained. That means there are temples and there are structures that are built and mosques that are built over other places of worship. They cannot be taken down, they cannot be removed, and they would remain as it is. Now the problem is that if this law continues, then the demand for a lot of other places like Kashi Vishwanath Temple in Varanasi or Krishna Janmabhoomi Temple in Mathura, they would be as they are and the status quo would be maintained. So you cannot reclaim them. So this is one aspect of looking at it, that because it is the instrument is enacted to protect secularism, and secularism being the basic structure of the Constitution, you cannot claim it. But in my view, the Parliament is empowered to repeal the Places of Worship Act. Now, why it can do it is because you cannot enact a statute and make it immune from the intervention of the Parliament, claiming that it is the basic feature of the Constitution. A statute cannot be a basic feature of the Constitution. It is the values that are the basic features of the Constitution. Secularism is a value, and that is why it is a basic feature of the Constitution. So values remain untouched, but the statutes that are enacted, they can obviously be changed. So in my view, the way to go ahead is to either amend the Places of Worship Act or repeal the Places of Worship Act and not read it in context of secularism. So that is one way through which we can go ahead with this. Of course, the Parliament is empowered. This judgment, the other way of reading this judgment is you don't read it together. You read Places of Worship Act as just a legislative instrument which is enacted, and secularism being the basic feature of the Constitution. So while secularism remains the basic feature of the Constitution, this act can be repealed because it may be inconsistent with the law, with the policy in the country. So I think that is one way through which we can go ahead, and the judgment in Ram Janmabhoomi may not be an impediment in the new beginning that we are talking about. So yes, this judgment is not a culmination. This judgment is in fact a beginning to reclaim what is rightfully ours and regain the lost glory. The Supreme Court's judgment in the Ram Janmabhoomi case clearly stated that there was a historical wrong which was done, and that is why after the judgment which was in favor of the Hindus, the Ram Janmabhoomi temple is being built. It is being built to undo the historical wrong which was done. But the number of historical wrongs that have been done does not end with the Ram Janmabhoomi. This judgment is just a beginning to reclaim the lost glory of this land, a beginning to rebuild new India, taking inspiration from the struggles of our ancestors. This judgment also paves way for cultural renaissance in this country. It is with this cultural renaissance we would be able to justify the struggles of our ancestors, rebuild our country from that inspiration, and make our future generation proud of their ancestors and their culture in this country. So clearly, we don't have to worship the ashes. We have to preserve the fire to make sure that this cultural renaissance does not end, and this new beginning paves way for our future generations to live in this country and all over with pride and glory of our ancestors. Thank you.